Clear, I assume.
We're ready to rumble. We're going live.
Okay. Kate's just cooked an unbelievable yellow curry, and it is all I can smell in the room. So I'm going to be getting tasting notes of curry on every single whiskey tonight.
It's a curry night with festival tasting of bottlings. Hello, everyone.
Something along those lines.
Hello, everyone tuning in to the live stream tonight. It is festival tasting night, and thank you everyone who's bought a pack, joined in on the live festival. My name's Matt Bailey. I'm joined with Andrew Durbidge, our cellar master. We're not in the same room.
No, how does this work? The magic of internet and webinars.
I'm here at Shirt Bar. It's the 10th anniversary of our partner bar, Shirt Bar, tonight here in Sydney.
Well done, Shirt Bar.
10 years of tailoring and whiskey service, which is great. Where have you locked AD? No. I promise he's not in my basement. Wink twice, Andrew. Wink twice.
It's actually the other way around. It's actually Matt who's locked in at the moment. I'm in the spacious. It's funny. Matt's actually at the 10th anniversary of Shirt Bar. I'm at the 10th anniversary of the Grey Blinds and Curtains Emporium. So I've just come out the back as well. And I've got loads of space. There's people partying over there. There's a massive bourbon tasting going on at the Venetian section at the moment. But over here at the Grey Blind section, we've got the single malt, so it's going well. So I think I'm doing all right. You're the one who's locked away.
They got no taste in the Venetian section. That's okay.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so we've got to taste a few festival casks. I'm going to see how long this I can stay on with you, of course, because this is I'm going to trust my internet connection in this back room here at Shirt Bar, which can be a bit touch and go at times. Well, I'm getting. Oh, you've done it again. You did it again, didn't you? I just heard.
You know how it works, my friend. You know how it works,
folks. If you've got your packs nearby, it's time to crack them open. It's festival month. Thank you so much for joining in. We've got about I think. At least 50 people bought the pack this month, which is great to see. There's always plenty to go around. We're going to start with Boozy Cherry Cake. Andrew, Distillery 82. Where do we start?
Well, we start at the beginning. 82. Fantastic. It's an Eastern Highlands distillery, actually. Off on the eastern side there. I had the pleasure of visiting it for the first time. Oh, I'm sad to say 4 years ago now, 2017. Beautiful old Victorian distillery. And I guess if you had to pigeonhole it, I think when it comes to pigeonholing distilleries and coming up with that one liner that's supposed to capture or everything about the distillery, it was the great Michael Jackson who always used to say of Glen Caedum that I said it. There you go. 1-0 to you. Yes. He always used to say about this distillery, it was famous for its creamy notes, a real creamy distillate and creamy spirit and whiskey. So I'm looking forward to finding some of that creaminess tonight with a bit of luck.
Now, you and I actually featured 82.27, only just like 1 or 2 virtuals ago. I'd say even it was probably the last virtuals, that New York versus Cincinnati. That was an absolute, that was a highlight of that tasting for me.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of adjectives you could throw at that. You've said highlight. I'd reach for ball terror. I thought it was sensational. It was a really, really good drop.
And I think we discussed that night about how underrated and I'll say overlooked this distillery is, because they do have a core range, but let's be honest, it's pretty faffy. It's not.
Well, Look, that's exactly it. And if I remember correctly, shoot me down if I'm wrong, but I think it's in the Angus Dundee portfolio of whiskies. You know, they're not. Here it is. There. They don't really make a song and dance about their single malt line. Is it underrated or is it just simply under promoted? If the owners aren't making a song and dance about it and just putting out a quiet range of whiskies and saying, you know, buy this at your own whim. We can't hold that against them, but
at your own whim, buy if you dare,
Yeah, I was trying to think of a nice way to put that. But,
if anyone from Angus Dundee is watching, I apologise in advance.
Yeah, great to see Darren Howie tuning in. Andrew Newcomb, good to see you. Wow, that's That's a great opening dram, I have to say, on the nose. That's a good introduction to the evening.
How's the fruit on that nose, though?
Absolutely.
Oh, it is like literally like squashed cherries in a what's that, like a kirsch, like a squashed.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And you know what I like, Matt? I think yes, you're absolutely right. There's all that fruit up front, and here's the fruit at the top of the dram. And if you get your nose and burrow underneath that, there's just that rich, sweet malt. You know, I'm a fan of malty whiskies. I think if you can still taste the barley, and those of you who've had the privilege of actually just getting a handful of dried malt, actual malt, barley malt, and tasting and chewing, you get that lovely sweetness, the cereal, the sugar. And I'm actually getting, I haven't even tasted this yet, but I'm getting that on the nose.
It's a very thick and unctuous spirit quality as well.
Yep.
Like even on the nose, you get that sense of like thickness to the spirit. I get that with some whiskeys, like I'm going to say some distillery names here, but whenever I taste things from distilleries like Altmore, you get that that sort of thickness of spirit, that character that I often don't get with this distillery, but I am getting it in this one.
I've just had my first sip, and it's giving me a huge plethora of impressions. But I'll tell you what is absolutely standing out most for me on this very first tasting is just the finish. You swallow that, and you get this crescendo, this second wave of flavor that comes through, the most beautiful warmth in the chest. That is really. That's one where I think the magic comes after it first hits your palate. James Gardens just said almost a creaming soda type on the palate. Yeah, absolutely. There's that vanilla, but the fruit that comes with it as well. Now, when you say creaming soda, James, we have this argument all the time. Do you mean the brown creaming soda or the red one? Because there was a big difference between the two. And I know when I was growing up as a kid, we used to distinguish between Schweppes creaming soda and the local state brand, which was Shelley's or Kirk's from memory.
Yeah, Kirk's. Was it called Shelley's at one point, or?
Well, I split my childhood between Victoria and New South Wales, and it was one of them was Shelley's and the other was Kirk's, and I can't remember which was which.
I'm always Kirk's. Kirk's brown creaming soda. That was the one.
Right. Okay.
That's the good stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
The pink one was always too sweet. I don't have a huge sweet tooth. The brown one was always the good one. Now I feel like
I agree. and you were really upmarket with your soft drinks if you graduated from the brown creaming soda to the sarsaparilla. Anyone remember that?
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's like upgrading from cola to Kinotto or something, you know. I don't drink Coca-Cola, I drink Kinotto.
Hey, this is gorgeous, and it's growing in the glass too.
That's
I just
lovely.
realised I'm using poor microphone technique here, covering my mouth with my hands and my dram,
and then talking at the same time.
Well, yes, but you've got a different mic to me.
If anyone could see my setup here at the moment, it's absurd. I mean, this is.
I'm impressed, mate. I know you've squeezed into a tiny spot there. You've bought all the gear as well. You've got the full rig.
Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous. I wanted to do it properly, and even though I've got about less than 1 square meter to stand in here, but it works.
Are you standing at the moment?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
There's no room to sit. There's literally couldn't fit a chair in here right now. There's cupboards and shelving and glassware everywhere.
So, Matt, this is obviously a festival's virtual. Most of the drams, if not all the drams tonight, are all part of the Society's festival bottlings.
Indeed.
We should probably give some mention to that process and what it involves and what it means and why these particular casks have been bottled.
Yeah. I mean, do you want me to start that off?
I think I was throwing to you. That was the general impression.
Okay, well, I mean, most of these festival bottlings, Ewan Campbell and Kai Ivalo and our team in the UK spend sometimes as much as 2 years formulating these. And I've been lucky enough to, not in this instance, but sometimes in the past, I've had lucky enough to taste some of these releases even like a year or 18 months before they've been released, which means there's a lot of thought and process that goes into picking out some very special casks to be bottled for the festivals. And so, like, the idea is that each branch around the world will get an allocation of some festival bottlings to share with members, which is fantastic. And we get to do them at the in-person events, which Andrew's hosting next Friday night and Alex Moores is hosting next Friday night as well, and Hobart, the lucky bastards, have already had theirs. This is an example of where these casks have been picked out by our tasting panel as something quite special, as something like really to celebrate, and also to celebrate the regionality. We don't focus too much on regionality at the society, and that's something I'm really proud of. We focus on flavour.
We don't now. Interestingly,
we don't now.
We did 15, 20 years ago, as did everyone else. To be fair, that was where the industry was at the time.
That's true, and that's that kind of thing where those kind of. Thanks, Darren.
Thank you, Darren. That is a good comment. Yeah. I'm rather proud of that handball, actually.
I mean, we don't focus too much on regionality at society because, flavour sort of takes first podium position on that, and that's kind of really important to us because if you're tasting a peated whiskey from Speyside or an unpeated whiskey from Islay, what do those regions start to fall apart a little bit, even just with basic things like that? And then if you dig a bit deeper into other parts of regionality, yes, there has a role to play still today, but we don't focus on it. And I think it's more important to focus on what the flavor of the profile is and what it is. So this is kind of harking back in a way to the celebration of those regions. It's the Highland region whiskey. This is a Highland whiskey.
Yeah. Two quick things. First of all, I really like your point there about the time it takes to put these together. I was having a good chat with Dr. Bill Lumsden of Glenmorangie fame and some of his colleagues as well, Annabelle Meikle, when she was back on a production line. And they were saying that everyone gets excited for, in this case, the Ardbeg Day release. So what are Ardbeg coming out this year? What's their Ardbeg Day release? And you may not appreciate that they were thinking about that 7 or 8 years ago. They are planning these things 8-9 years in advance because that's the time it takes to lay the stock down, think about it, find out if it works, and then market it. So these really are long-term projects. So, I'd certainly take your point there. And then I think Darren's asked a great question there. Does the society look for anything different in a festival bottling than a normal release? And he says, i.e. regionally, typically. And I guess that's the main thing. Obviously, if you're going to celebrate the Highland Whiskey Festival, you've got to choose distilleries that come from the Highlands, and ditto Islay and Campbelltown and all the rest of it. Do we look for anything in particular? I think we just want the release to be interesting and worthy. I'm a firm believer that everything that wears the society label is a great whiskey. Having said that, there are some that obviously get a bit of more of a run than others and get a bit of hype to them, or some will say this is a stellar top dram, or all the rest of it. And I believe that the thinking behind some of the festival casks is to really try and get something that is either out of the box, out of the park, I should say, in terms of its quality and its flavour reach, or the process that went into it to produce a really cracking dram. And when you look at the lineup of 5 we have tonight, each of them, in fact, 4 of those 5 have quite a story in the concoction and the construction that went behind them.
5 of our 5, I think, do have a story behind them.
Oh, well, one of them's just a straight First World Bourbon barrel, so... What I'm saying is there was no special recipe that went into that. It just happened to be a cracking cask, and that's a wonderful thing. But we didn't have to play around with it. That was my point.
And here's the sound we've all been waiting for.
Oh, nice one.
There it is. So James is saying it adds a bit more herbal with a little bit more water and almost in a rye direction. Very cool. I haven't added too much water to that one, and I think that's a good point. He's also said don't add too much water. I don't think it needed it.
That was exactly my point. This is 63%. And amazingly, I don't think it needs water at all. For the first cab off the rank, that was just beautiful at that strength. I've got myself a little bit of water on the side here, but I didn't feel obliged to add any. So
the next one, which we might look at now, is the 63.73. If you want to pour that into your glass and get that opening up of it. This one I did find, I've tasted this one once before. It does actually require a little bit of time open, I'd say. It does appreciate being open in your glass a bit. This was very this one went very quickly on outturn. I should mention that none of these whiskies are actually any available anymore for members to buy. They've all been part of the festival this month, except for the 53 that we're going to get to later on, where there's 20 left as of right now, I think, or 21 left as of right now, something like that.
I just want to answer a question. Well, Matt, you said this one needs a bit of time to breathe and get some air. We'll give it that opportunity. And doing so, I just want to answer a question that Darren's asked, and it's a great question.
Very topical. Very topical.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah. What separates a highland from a Speyside given their proximity? And I think we need to appreciate that the highlands and the Speyside are not separate. One lives within the other. The highlands is, well, strictly speaking, the highlands is anything north of the Highland line. The Speyside region is a region subset within the Highland section. So, there's that old saying, all Speysiders are Highlanders, but not all Highlanders are Speysiders. That's a bit there. In terms of Speyside itself, look, it's very, the Speyside, facing the other way, Speyside river goes up in that direction, and there's that, whatever we're up to now, 45, 50 distilleries that sort of scatter the banks and the sides of it out from some distance. I always find it interesting that Ardmore is not considered a Speyside distillery when it's really in Huntly, which there are distilleries further away from there that do call themselves Speyside. So, Darren, the lines do get blurred occasionally, but for the most part, most of them know what they are and where they are.
Yeah.
Great colour on Mr. 63 here.
You could even say that colour is
correct. And what's interesting here, Matt? We discussed the order beforehand, and I agree with it so far. But we wouldn't normally put a sherry influenced whiskey this early in a lineup, would we?
No. It'd normally be a little bit later on. It'd be like at least the third or fourth whiskey in a lineup. Just because, do you find that you once you've had a sherried whiskey, your palate is a little bit sort of influenced by that later, or do you find it's the other way around? Or
I just think if you're doing a gradation of light to heavy or soft to strong, the sherry influenced whiskies tend to be more dominant, more powerful. And if you have a really strong sherried whiskey and then you drop back to a lighter bourbon matured cask afterwards, that bourbon cask sometimes struggles to stand up and shine in all its glory as a result. So I think it's more that than anything else.
Fair enough.
Well done, James. James's comment: the bombing run of peat necessitates some early sherry. That's true. If you think about it, our next three all have some degree of peat influence. So I suppose this was always going to end up this way, wasn't it?
You could almost do this one before the 93.
Yeah, because the 93 is not a heavy hitter.
No. But this would definitely be lost. After a 53 or something. There's something about Distillery 63 for me. I've said this before. There's almost a savoury, biscuity, hot warehouse kind of note to some of their spirit. And I've always found that in generally the spirit that comes out of Distillery 63. But the way that it reacts, thank you. The way that it reacts with sherry is quite different, because we've seen quite a few ex-bourbon 63s over the years. And so to say something in full maturation, 12 years maturation in second fill Oloroso, it's definitely sherry. I'm getting a lot of sherry, but the sherry's not overwhelming the spirit in this case. And I really like that. You know what I love in a whiskey? I love that when even after 12 years, you can taste the spirit. As you said before as well, you can taste the malt in the spirit. I'm not just drinking a high-proof sherry.
No, but it's second fill as well. So I guess that's going to contribute there. Hey, little known fact about this distillery that not many people know about, but this distillery is owned by Pernod Ricard. Ultimately, if you go high up and up the tree, underneath that is Shivers Brothers. And so this is one of the Shivers Brothers distilleries, and they own 13 distilleries. And Shivers made the decision quite some time ago to fully automate their distilleries. So all 13 of them operate with basically one guy behind a computer pretty much doing the lot from one spot. And they are wonderful automated systems. When you go to the distilleries, you still go through the whole process of the mash and then the brewing, the fermentation, the wash and the distillation. But what makes Distillery 63 special is that it's the one distillery in that portfolio of 13 where they've still kept all the old production methodology geared up, ready to go. So it's still automated, but when they need to train all their staff about, well, what do you do if the automation breaks down and you've got to switch to manual, Glenn, this distillery, almost said it, is still, I came so close, didn't I?
You even said the T. You even said the T, Glenn.
I did not. I said Glenn only. But this distillery is where their staff still learn the real rudimentary fundamental tricks of the trade of distillation.
I had no idea about that. I had no idea they kept it all running at the distillery for this one.
Yeah. Oh, well, sorry. As I say, I don't believe it's run.
Training
tool. Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah.
Very cool.
And it's tucked in the middle of nowhere too. It's one of those classic Speyside distilleries that you're driving out in the backwoods, thinking in the middle of nowhere, and you suddenly stumble across it. It's a strange one.
That's always fun.
Yeah. Again, Matt, I have no desire to add water to this.
I haven't, but I think I might give it a go. I'm just gonna. I don't have any overly desire to, but 62.3. I'm gonna give this. I'll take one for the team. If it doesn't need it, I'll let you know.
On second, I got this. Just interestingly enough, I normally get this on the nose. It's taken a second sip on the palate for me, but I am getting a tiny hint of the S word there. A little bit of sulfur there for me.
Yeah, I do get it, but it's. Do you think how much of that do you think is cask or spirit in this case? Because I get that quite often in this distillery.
I can distinguish pretty easily between spirit sulfur and cask sulfur, and I think there's a little bit of cask sulfur in that. Just a tiny bit.
Kai's jumped into the stream. Good to see you, Kai. There's a good story about the distillery in a past issue of Unfiltered.
Kai? Well,
Kai's
welcome. Hey, oh gosh, the boss is watching. We'd better be on our good behaviour now.
Yep, we're on our best behaviour right now. It's already almost 11 a.m. in Scotland. The time frame at the moment, we're much closer to aligned to them, so they can watch this now.
Oh well, I'm honoured, Kai. It is very good to have you with us. Thank you very much for tuning in and for participating. And I better go read up my past issue of Unfiltered.
And 63.73 is correct. By the way, welcome to Martin Eber, who's tuning in live tonight as well. Who got sent a pack and it arrived without any additional taxes. So good to see you, Martin. That's not scary at all, Kai. Thanks so much for that comment. Just to put us even more on edge. There you go.
I was going to tell that really rude joke about mountain biking, but I won't now.
Yeah, I think I made some joke to him about some motorcycling joke as well, because I think you were on a BMW, Kai, and I was on a Triumph, and you know we're sworn not to get along.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to echo that too, Martin. Great to have you tuning in from Hong Kong, my friend. Very good to be dramming with you live. I don't think we've had a dram together since that Craig Ellicky event a while ago. But anyway.
There you go. Thanks, guys. Great to see you. Huge thanks for sending that back. I have a Ducati now. Yeah, okay. Well, I can still make fun of BMW riders then. That's fine. 63.73, shake your butt, full maturation, second fill, Oloroso. That's a fun whiskey. And Andrew, as per our previous conversation, I would say that is very representative in a way of the Speyside style, of those sort of those rich sherried Speyside whiskies in a way.
Oh, absolutely. You could put, if we think of those Speyside distilleries that really espouse and advocate the sherried style, and let's name names. I guess we're talking about the Glenfarclases and Aberlour, Boone and Macallans of this world, and Glendronach in more recent times. You could put this up in that lineup, and it would hold its head up quite proudly, I'd suggest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you end up adding a drop of water?
I did, and it didn't. It was good. It was fine with water.
Okay.
Yeah, it was actually quite nice. It softened it out a bit. Didn't ruin the nose. Didn't ruin the palate. I will admit, my palate has been a little bit shot this week. And Andrew called me this morning, and I sounded like an octave lower than I do right now.
I thought you had some vocal processor on. It was very impressive.
No, I've had a head cold most of this week, and so my palate is a little bit all over the place right now. But I think I'm pretty much there now. I'm good now. I'm human again now. Excellent.
Well, I think any time spent at Shirt Bar would always make someone feel a bit better, and that the world is a better place.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and just to reiterate, yes, what Andrew's mentioning there is I'm actually at Shirt Bar. Andrew's at the Blinds Conference, and we are
Grey Blinds Emporium. It's their 10th anniversary.
And it is the 10th anniversary of Shirt Bar. It's one of our partner bars here in Sydney. They do a great job of representing the society. They've got some great society casks. They took on the whole festival festival bottlings from Outturn. All 8 of them are at the bar now. A number of them are already pretty much on their last legs. That one, the 63.73, is just about gone, I think. But the 3.318 that vanished in under 1 minute today is on the bar and available by the half dram as well. So I'd recommend jumping in on that.
James Caden's just made the interesting observation. He's having the 63 with a mate. They're sharing it, and James got a heavy sulfur note, and his colleague didn't. And that's one of the more frustrating things about sulfur. Some people can have a blind spot to it. So for some of us, we're very sensitive. We detect it. We don't like it. Others, it just sails completely under the radar because there's that. I've actually written an article about this. There's that genetic blind spot that actually precludes and prevents some people from detecting it. So James, that's not too surprising if you're with a friend who's not getting the same notes you are there.
Mm. All right. Each year,
beautiful 12-year-old.
Outside of COVID, each year there's also the much smaller but much loved Campbelltown Malts Festival.
Hey,
there's only 3 distilleries operating in Campbelltown right now. At one point, there
is there, Matt? Really?
Right now, there's 2.5 distilleries in Campbelltown. If we're being really nitpicky here for a moment.
Well, my understanding is that it's very rare for Springbank and Kilkerran to be, or Glengyle, whatever you want to call it. It goes by 2 names. To distill at the same time. They're normally doing one or the other. Is that a fair call? That's my understanding.
But they are different distilleries.
That's true, but there's only ever one of them operating at a time. So. Does that mean one of them's mothballed for 6 months of the year?
If Glenfarclas was distilling Monday to Wednesday and Glenlivet was distilling Thursday to Saturday, does that make them the same distillery?
But that's not the case.
All right.
Okay, I'm being silly. I've had 1 dram too many, and I'm being cheeky already.
We haven't even started.
So yes, three Campbelltown distilleries.
There's 2.8 distilleries in Scotland. I'll find a middle balance point with you here somewhere, and they have their Campbelltown Malts Festival. Each distillery gets their own day in the sun, if you like. They each have their own sort of music and malts festival each day, and I was lucky enough to go to the Music and Malts Festival for Distillery 93 in 2019. Fantastic distillery, hugely. I would say of the 3. Has the least of the cult status, but I think makes just as good a malt of any in that area. It's a funny region, Campbelltown. It's a very blue collar area. It's lots of the ports. There's some great the haggis nachos is well worth exploring at the Black Sheep pub. And if you are recommended not to get the full size one.
It is. I love Campbelltown, to be honest. I've been there a couple of times now, and I love it, the understated nature of it. It's almost like all the locals know that they're right down the very tip. Hello. We got a friend.
Hello, everybody.
10th anniversary for Shirt Bar tonight.
Happy birthday, Shirt Bar.
Happy birthday, Shirt Bar. Razor Dram. What have we got here?
You did the Spice Cannon?
Spice Cannon.
I've got the Boozy Cherry Cake.
Boozy Cherry. Oh, we just had Boozy Cherry Cake.
Oh, did you?
Really good.
I've got to try this one.
It's really good.
Haven't had this before.
The nose is unbelievable.
Cheers.
Sanjava.
Cheers.
So tell us, Andrew, have you poured a bit of that 93 into the glass?
I have, and I've just had a taste of it, and it may not have come over the microphone, but I just said, wow, what an extraordinary flavour. That is really jammy.
It's like it is the fruit pizza, is correct though, isn't it?
Fruit pizza.
Yeah, and fascinating that as we've just transitioned to a first fill bourbon barrel, and that has a surprising amount of wonderful fruit. 11 years old, 58%, and a real beautiful mouthfeel that is just clinging to the side of your mouth. It's grippy. There's some spice there. There's some bite there. This is an interesting drop. This is a great example of why you should never dismiss a whiskey just purely on its barrel or its cask type. To say, oh, bourbon barrel, that won't be exciting. Boy, you would rob yourself of some wonderful moments if you dismiss this whiskey on that basis.
Oh wow, that's something else, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dangerously fruited pizza.
Dangerously fruit pizza, yeah.
It's dangerous.
It is dangerous, yeah.
So it's a boozy cherry cake. That's
It's got to be.
Now we go.
We're going to get everyone in here. I can't get anywhere without these guys.
This is a party. It's a party.
It is 10th anniversary here down at Sherpa. So Wooler and he's just saying hello, and along with Justin saying hello. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
I'll jump back out in a minute.
All right. See you guys.
Would you give my regards to Mr. Wooler when we finish there? Yeah,
I will indeed.
What a lovely drop.
Just airtime. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, it is a lovely drop. It's, you know what? I think it's, you know how I love that a society bottling name echoes that of the flavor, and I think this is bang on. It's fruit. It's like dangerously fruited pizza. It's like anchovies and tomato and pineapple on a pizza straight away. It's like there's definitely that anchovy thing going on. It's that Campbelltown funk going on.
I think there's always been a wonderful subcommittee of members who just play the game of observing the names that we give our whiskies in the society, and it's you can almost put them into several baskets or categories. You know, there's the ones that are a bit sort of playful and whimsical. There are some that are clever plays on words and puns, and there are some that just really accurately nail exactly what is in the glass. And this is certainly in that third camp. I'm realizing I've underpoured my dram. I'm going back for seconds. That is just gorgeous.
Yeah, I've knocked about 15 mil into the glass, and it's.
Who let Matt Wooler in?
Very good question.
He's got the keys to the city, doesn't he?
Yeah. He'd like to think so.
Yeah. So Matt, this is I love this distillery. I've always had a lot of respect and time for this distillery. It's changed hands recently. Probably, when was that now? 4 or 5 years ago, wasn't it? And has certainly come into its own. It's always been an amazing distillery for its versatility. It seems to have a range of different styles, from its lightly peated to slightly more heavily peated. I think it's a great ambassador for the Campbelltown style. Anyone who sort of says Campbelltown whiskies have got to have that grunginess, that dirty diesel engine note, that harbour note. This distillery has that one. I think it's fantastic in that regard. And this is just at the lighter end in terms of the peat spectrum, but certainly no less a great example of the distillery.
Very deservedly in the oily and coastal profile, though.
Yeah, exactly. I think our tasting panel nailed that.
I've spoken about this before. I'm a huge fan of what I like to call second-hand diesel fume. So not the actual diesel itself, but that fume off the pump, off a dirty pump. If you walk past a fuel station, the diesel pump has a particular smell, and it's a smell of oil and grease and everything. And I love that in a whiskey. It's a very savory note, I realize.
For me, anyone who's had the privilege of catching one of Scotland's ferries to the islands, and particularly, obviously, the Isla ferry, but if you've been on a Calmac ferry, the Caledonian McBrain ferries, you stand on the deck of those as you're crossing the water, and there's a smell in the air, and it's the exhaust from the big diesel thing up on top. It's the marine maritime brine in the air. It's that industrial sort of note just of the smell of the ferry that you're on, and the cars down on the deck, and the grease and the oil and the chains. And for me, a really good Campbelltown whiskey is one that just reminds me of being on the Calmac ferry to one of the islands on the west coast there.
Yeah, the only flavour I can remember of being on the Calmac is a bacon buddy and a strong coffee just to wake me up. But yeah.
Yeah, well, that's almost compulsory, isn't it? You climb on board. Don't they give it to you as you walk up the gangplank?
Mandatory bacon buddy.
Yeah, I thought so. They look at you strangely if you ask for chips.
A great comment from Darren Howie. The Cullen skink at the Black Sheep or the upstairs Bangladeshi tandoori restaurant that looked like a time transplant from the 70s. Surprisingly ashy on the palate, like licking coal covered in a fruit salad. Very cool. I did get stuck. I went to a restaurant in Campbelltown with our global ambassador John McShane after the festival. And I think that was also a time transplant from the 70s. It was an Indian restaurant.
I'm impressed with this at every step. The nose is stunning. The palate is stunning. The finish is stunning. The mouthfeel is stunning. That's
something else.
Yeah.
And I know we see a good chunk of 93s, but I say never sleep on them. We've spoken about this before. The younger ones that we see in the sort of the lightly peated profile versus the slightly older ones in the oily and coastal could be two totally different distilleries.
Oh yeah,
so different. I mean, sometimes we taste things that are an 8-year-old versus a 16-year-old from say Distillery 9, and it's like that's you can see the thread of similarity, whereas you don't see it with these. They're so diverse, and such is the nature of single cask.
Yeah, and that was my point earlier about how this distillery is quite versatile. It does make a range of styles, and of course that's very much a function of the ownership at that time that was obviously responsible for almost creating all of its own blends with whiskies within its own house and under its own portfolio, and this distillery did wonders in contributing to that.
Absolutely.
Wow, I love the sweetness too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the sweetness is unbelievable.
It's a fair hike to get down to Campbelltown, folks, and I know most people, most Australians, that is, if they make their pilgrimage to Scotland, and it's hard enough to get to Ireland. I know a lot of people will go out of their way to try and make that jump across the west coast to Ireland, and it's sometimes a bridge too far to then get and to come back down to Campbelltown afterwards in the time that we typically have available when we're holidaying there. But if you can, folks, it is well worth the journey. And this distillery does some amazing tours. It's got a wonderful visitor centre now. It's been ramped up. They put a coat of paint on the place. Great place to visit, and of course there's another 2 distilleries nearby that will also be quite welcoming.
Yeah.
I struggle with this, Matt. We have our virtuals all the time, and I know it's very boring TV just watching 2 people enjoy a dram, and sometimes it's time to move along, but I think it's a shame we've got to move on to the next dram now when this one is really still it's continuing to open up.
It is. I would recommend if you guys have got if those playing along at home have got this in a glass, set it aside maybe for a bit later. Put a cap on it if you can or something, because that's changing. Or of course you can always press pause and catch up later. This is at your own pace, but we encourage you to we're gonna taste on and see how the road progresses.
Remind me, Matt, when did this one go on sale? Was this released today or the earlier one?
8 hours and 9 minutes ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, anyone who picked that up today, well done and congratulations. You've bought yourself a treat.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing was, I mean, I like to call it. The thing I like to encourage to avoid. You should avoid doing is what I like to call code hunting. Is people often people are jumping on things like the 3s and 53s and whatnot, and that's fantastic, and they're great whiskies. But something like that, if you picked one of those up today, you'd be very happy with where you've landed, because that's something else entirely. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and there was a bit of chatter on the Society's Facebook group this week about that, about chasing codes, and I think we both responded, didn't we? Saying you can miss some true gems if you're busy hunting for or waiting for a certain number to come along.
I mean, let's be honest. That first whiskey we started with, Boozy Cherry Cake, is a great example of that. It's an incredible whiskey from a distillery that, as I said, they don't really have much of a profile, nor do they seem to care for it. But what the Society is doing with those casks and that flavour is fantastic.
Yeah. I've just taken the liberty of pouring the next dram early just to give it a chance. And I cannot smell anything else now. My entire area has been overtaken with the most glorious peat that's just emanating from this glass. Oh, my goodness.
He's on the other side of this curtain and he's still commenting on the stream.
He was always a master of multitasking, that man.
We might move on to I'm just written Cask 10, sweet smoked salmon jerky. Probably meant to be a comma in that.
Hey, when did grammar get in the way of a good dram?
There we go. I've got it right this time. Sweet, smoked salmon jerky. I'm going to pour just a smidge of that here.
Mate, I got to tell you can't see my setup. My glass was sitting quite some distance away from me, and it is just absolutely exploding out into my space here. We'll talk about
this one, the 10.
Yeah, the 10, absolutely. It is exuding smoke like you wouldn't believe.
But how's the do you immediately get like salmon and jerky as a note?
Well, I'm about to say that there's a maritime fish seafood note that is so prevalent there. And yes, there's then the spice that gives it the jerky side to it.
One of the comments, we featured this whiskey at at the Shirt Bar tasting, which was the first appearance of these festival casks a couple of weeks ago, and one of the tasting notes from the audience was just how eminently sort of integrated this whiskey was, just how well put together it tasted, and I think that's a testament to Ewan's work and what he does at the society in actually sort of, dare I say the word, vatting or bringing together of these casks and creating what is. Just to clarify for those playing along at home, this is not a single cask whiskey. I don't think there's any casks in whiskey production. No, there aren't any that would produce 2,333 bottles. So it's a mixture of recharred hogsheads, Oloroso and XPX recharred hogsheads. But it's definitely a single malt. It's all from Distillery 10 in Islay, and it is very well integrated.
I think it was 1994 was the first year that this distillery did an experimental run of peated whiskey. This distillery was famous for being one of the two on Islay that was not peated. And it was in 1994 that they did an experimental batch under different ownership at that time. They did another experimental batch in 1997. But all those, the distillate from those two experimental batches were deemed failures. They felt that they didn't really capture what they wanted. This was all to go into the blends that the owning company owned at the time. The society was the lucky beneficiary of that. We picked up a lot of casks from those 94, 97 distillates that were deemed failures by the owners, and they turned out to be tremendous drams 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years later when they were bottled. And I think it was about 2005 or 6 when the distillery actually started to release them under its own label.
Was that the old 40% versions that we?
I believe so. Yeah. And so I guess for the last 10 years, most consumers have known that for a short period every year, this distillery does its peated runs, and obviously this is a product of that run. You hear different stories as to how many days, weeks, or months of the year that this distillery does peated runs. What's your take on that, Matt? What's the number you've heard?
I've heard it's 2 months of the year. Yes.
Okay. I've heard 2 months. I've also heard 2 weeks. So there's different messages around town on that one.
It's probably one or the other, or somewhere in between. There's a great question from Martin Eber who asks, "Are we likely to see more of these small batch releases in the future?" The answer is yes. Especially, it makes a lot of sense to have this many bottles to share around of a festival release as well. Because remembering these are usually single cask whiskey means that what have you got? 150, 250 bottles max kind of things from a hoggy or whatnot to share around doesn't go very far around the world. And so if we can get if larger allocation of something special can be shared around and created by our whiskey team, Kai and Ewan and whatnot, then why not? I mean, James says, burnt the fish roast and now the house is burning down. My house smells sweet as it goes up in flames, apparently.
I'm with you, James. Absolutely.
As long as you're enjoying the smell of your house and all your belongings going up in flames, go for it.
Do you know what I love about this? In addition to everything else that's in the official tasting notes and that we've mentioned already, there is a delicious white chocolate note.
White chocolate.
And anyone else agree with me on that? To be honest, I teetered between white and dark. I've gone to the two extremes there, which makes no sense at all. But there's definitely there's a chocolate note in it, which is gorgeous.
I added a drop of water, but I don't recommend doing so.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Mr. Wooler's just chimed in with a note. Wet carpet, but fresh grilled teppanyaki prawns. Yeah, I can see the teppanyaki prawns. Absolutely.
And I just realised Matt's in the shirt bar change room. Keep the clothes on, please, Matt. Yes, I will, Martin. Don't worry. I'm surrounded by suits and shirts, though. Could be something worth trying on in here.
I thought you did, mate.
Some nice jackets in here.
Do you remember when we were talking about this 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we were saying, is it a really good idea to be broadcasting live from a tasting event at a bar? And you said, yeah, it'll be no worries at all.
It's no worries. Look at this. I got internet. I got whiskey. What more could you worry about? I mean,
hey, this is a stunner. I'm loving this.
Yeah, this is great. This is great stuff, and I thoroughly agree with the tasting notes from Outturn as well.
And this is the other thing too. It's only 7 years old.
Yeah,
and you would never. Well, maybe you would. The level of peat and smoke in this, I guess, is a bit of a giveaway that it's youthful. Only because of the peat still being so upfront in what it offers. But it is so developed. Anyone who thinks, oh, whiskey's got to get to 10 or 12 years old until it's got some maturity or is appropriate to be bottled, you are so off the mark. This whiskey just sings at this age.
I think that's something that it's a prevailing thought that I think is finally starting to get the final nails in the coffin of, really, isn't it? I mean, that old sort of, oh, whiskey's got to be this age before it's bottled, or it's got to be bottled at this proof kind of conversations, and they're very, very quickly debunked as soon as you taste something like this.
Well, all of that was really where the industry had to market itself for the best part of 20 years there, because of it was a long lag and flow-on effect from the whiskey lock, from the overproduction in the 80s that then was sitting around. So they had to spin a story, and now that's the other way around, but the marketing's gone the other way.
And then we got the NAS realm of whiskies, of course.
Well, that was the response. Our good friend in Brisbane, Othmar, good to see you, mate. Glad to have you join in. He's just commented he doesn't have this, but he's sipping on some 10 New Make instead. Now, that's impressive. I don't know where you get 10 New Make from, but I'm impressed. And Othmar, we haven't caught up for a dram for a long time, but, mate, good to have you with us here tonight.
Good to see you, Othmar.
Oh. Wow.
That's fantastic.
Isn't it just? What's great, Matt, is that this is sort of the whiskey that you would typically finish a tasting on, isn't it? To think there's one more after this is.
yeah. But I found it kind of like I found this one when I first was going through the lineup. We were talking about it. It was like there's a certain lightness to it at the same time. It's a very enjoyable peated whiskey. It's not too thick or syrupy. It's got a lovely lightness to the character, which I enjoy in it as well. So didn't want to.
As you say, and then that's a function of the age, isn't it? It hasn't had that time for the oak to really start to inject maybe a bit more of that texture and development.
Yeah.
Again, aptly named.
Yeah. The name is right on point with the flavor. That sweet smoked salmon jerky. There is a sweetness with it. There's like that sugared jerky kind of thing. What do you call it? Not biltong, but what is that thing where it's like sweet jerky? There's a thing called sweet jerky. It's not biltong. It's another one. It's like something else. So it's like an Indonesian like thing.
I'm not familiar. I'm sorry.
I'll have to think on that one. It's definitely something you'd find sort of like in Indonesian sweets. It'd be like, salted sweet beef kind of thing. Anyway, I like that.
Yeah, right. Lovely finish as well. Classic Isla whiskey where you swallow, and then there's the additional almost second entry of smoke comes through, and then you realize that the peat actually has many dimensions and facets to it. It's not just about the smoke, and it would be very lazy to just say peat when in fact what you've actually got is some burnt charcoal. You've got that earthiness. There's some forest floor and fungal notes. There's the potting mix and the soil. It is a really
potting mix. That's a good note.
Yeah, it's a really multi-dimensional peat to this one. And it's all captured up in this wonderful tasting note of salmon and brine, and that just sort of gives it a hug on the outside and captures it all.
Oh, whiskey that gives you a hug.
I'm a tender guy, mate. Every whiskey gives me a hug.
Every whiskey, huh?
Oh yeah. I don't always welcome the hug, to be fair. But,
well put.
I once got hugged by a cheap blend, and I didn't hug back. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I have no obligation or compunction to add water to this. I don't know if you have or if any of our viewers have tonight.
I added a few drops, and as I said, it doesn't need it. It doesn't need it. Yeah, I think it almost fell apart a little bit with water, that sample, but that's okay.
Yes, Martin, I do remember the Shivers Age Matters campaign from a while ago. That almost looks embarrassing in hindsight now, doesn't it? But look, it was the message that had to be sold at that time. There's this wonderful relationship between reality, production, and the marketing team that have to get the stock out the door and get it to our shelves and convince people to buy it. So there's always that disconnect. And it's funny, if you talk to anyone in production, I mean, oh goodness, have a chat to Dr. Bill Lumsden about his thoughts on things and then what the marketers want to do with it. There's often a disconnect at times, but that's the reality of the industry.
Or as a mate of mine who works in whiskey production once said, you don't always want to know how the sausage is made. James says, this is great. Salmon without the anaphylaxis. Am allergic, unfortunately. Well, if you get to enjoy the salmon flavor without coming out in hives, then all the power to you. And I'm glad I bought this, says Paul Hamilton. Good to see you, Paul, by the way. I'm not usually partial to 10s, but this is different. Nice work, SMWS. It's funny you say that, Paul. I know members have probably heard me say this before in other tastings, but I'm a huge fan of the unpeated 10s that we've seen through the society. I find them to be like hugely like crystalline malt, kind of rich, sort of buttery, like sort of like what are they? Those tamarind almond kind of thing note on some of them, and there's a certain flavor profile to the unpeated 10s we see through that I love, and I've always been a bit like, oh, I love the unpeated 10s, so I sort of shy away from the peated 10s myself a little bit. Whereas now I think that one has changed my mind on peated 10s straight away. It is very different from the single casks we've seen, but that's exciting. I mean, and it's fun to share around, and it's a good bottle that you could share with someone who perhaps isn't as I guess well versed in peated whiskey. I reckon that'd be a really good introduction to like a full peated whiskey, that kind of bottling.
That's a fascinating point, Matt. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is, historically and traditionally, this distillery was an unpeated distillery. And as we already just mentioned earlier, 10 out of 12 months of the year is making unpeated spirit. I think further to your point, and you made a good one there, look, if I'm honest and fair, I think some of the commercial releases they've put out in the peated range have not particularly hit the mark or impressed, and a few of them have been in some fancy exotic casks that I don't actually think did the spirit much favour. Whereas, yeah, as you say, when the society gets it right with just something that's straight up the cannonball, it's a great result.
Yeah. There's Kai.
That's a very common saying, by the way. Straight up the cannonball. I'm sure you're all familiar with that.
Straight through the cannonball straight through the wall. Exactly.
Something like that. Yes.
Kai says he also generally prefers the unpeated 10s. Really pleased you're all enjoying this one, though. Of course we are.
Oh, look, as I said, we were used to unpeated 10s. That was how we. Well, if you're my vintage, at least, that's how you came to know the distillery. And its classic 12-year-old was esteemed and still is as one of the great drams of any category you want to put it in. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Shall we?
We shall.
We're on to our fifth whiskey. Of course, you take your own time. We want to watch, if you want to watch this back at a different pace or however you wish. 53.369 fish licorice.
Oh, I'm liking the color of this. That's I haven't had too many whiskies from this distillery for a while with that much color.
Yeah, we've had a really strong string of 53s in the last 2-3 years, I could say. It's been really good to have a constant supply of some great whiskies. This one also came out today, limit 1 per member. This is the only one of the lineup tonight that is still available. So if you really like this, I wouldn't sleep on this one. It had 7 years in a ex-bourbon hogshead before being transferred to a first fill STR barrique. Now, Andrew and I have spoken about barriques before. We've spoken about STR before, but just to refresh your memory, STR stands for Shaved Toast Rechar, which we can go into a bit more. And barrique is a fancy word for barrel. But it's a fancy French word for barrel. But it is, it's an a Shaved Toast Rechar ex-wine barrel finish. But it's not really a finish. It's an extra maturation, as we like to say, because it's a finish is something I like to think of a finish as it's like 1 year. But this has had an additional minimum maturation of what Scotch whiskey would be anyway on that whiskey. So it's had an additional 3 years of maturation in a first fill STR. This is kind of the reason why we wanted to put it after the 10 as well. It's a bit sort of bigger. It's a bit syrupier. It's a bit sort of wild and a really big whiskey to finish on. And wow, that nose. Bloody hell. I can safely say 53 like that. I've never had a 53 like that before. The DNA is there, of course, but there's something else going on that.
I'll tell you, I'm going to maybe say something controversial here, and I say it in good spirit and in good health. But I nose and I taste that, and I'm reminded not of a 53, but of this distillery's sister, just a little bit further down to the south, that starts with L.
Oh wow!
Tell me you don't get little hints of Lagavulin on that.
I don't, but I do get hints of Distillery 111.
Wow. Okay. No comeback. I'm sorry. That's.
I'm only here to be cut down by you. Come on.
No, but I mean, obviously both distilleries have identical malt. That's something that's not often known about. Both 53 and its sister down the coast both have the same malt out of the Port Ellens maltings, malted at 35 parts per million these days. And this is just beautiful, absolutely stunning. And I think it's amazing when you read the chatter on social media and in the whiskey forums and all the groups. It's amazing how many people say that this distillery, number 53, really seems to shine amongst the independents. There's a lot of people that say that the commercial releases are quite nice, but if you really want to experience what this distillery is capable of, you go to the independent bottlers. And I have to say, without any bias or conflict of interest, I think the Society's 53s that have been bottled over the last, 20 years have just all been gorgeous and stunning. Yeah.
But I mean, in fairness, we do things, as you know, we do things very differently as well. I mean, this is not, it would be even unusual within independent bottlers to find a 53 that has had 3 years in a first fill STR.
Oh, absolutely.
It might have 6 months in one or something like that. It doesn't have that sort of patience. Othmar says, you had me at STR. I can't wait for mine to arrive. You get all sorts with 53. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be folly to try and define 53 into some sort of flavor profile this big. 53 has this going on for it. You know, it just is so powerful in the many different styles. We've had some amazing 53s from first fill bourbon barrels, second fill bourbon barrels, sherry butts, sherry hogsheads, ones that have been finished in something else. They've all been amazing and fantastic over the years. We've seen 53s at quite youthful ages, 7, 8, 9 years old. I recall we had one in the 20s not too long ago, and everyone's a winner. I'll be frank and say I don't think we've had too many duds. Back when the Australian branch of the society used to have our local tasting panel and taste a lot of the stuff to decide which of the many bottlings to bring in, I don't recall us ever declining a 53. I think we were impressed every time, and every single 53 that was offered to us, we pounced on because they were always so good.
Caitlin Cooper says, love this 53, just picked up a bottle. Good to see you, Caitlin. Carpe Diem was a 30-year-old. That was spectacular, says James Caden.
Oh, Carpe Diem, that's a happy memory. Yeah,
that was a happy dram, that one. Martin Eber asks, Andrew, does that mean we should try it in a smoky cokie then, AD?
Do I have to respond to that? Is that the...
Does his deflating laugh give you enough of a response that we need for that one? There you go.
I'm sure we all know, but there's one of the Facebook whiskey groups here in Australia seems to have a bit of an obsession with smoky cokies, and I've not bought into the discussion thus far. Although, to be fair, I did post smoky cokie with a Blackmore not too long ago. So,
that was a masterful troll. That was well put.
That was a good one, wasn't it? Yeah.
And 53 base bottles are a lovely introduction to peated whiskey, but the independents are brilliant. It always seems to cover both spectrums extremely well. And just to extend on what Andrew was saying before, I mean, the flavor spectrum that comes out of this distillery in all shapes and sizes, from society bottlings to indies to OBs to wherever even to when you find them as a core component of a blended malt or of a blend, it's such a versatile distillery, such a consistent and versatile distillery.
Yeah. And on that note, Matt, you and I were at an event a week or two ago, which featured an unpeated 53, which was actually dram of the night, you might recall. There were 5 whiskies that night. One of them was an unpeated 53. And that was the top scoring dram in that particular lineup. So again, just an example of the versatility of this distillery and the fact that it just seems to hit that quality bar every time.
I'm pretty sure that was like a week and a bit ago, but it feels like it was 3 months ago.
It was May the 4th, in fact. But there you go.
Oh, okay. So 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Matt Wooler, thank you for your contribution there. Absolutely. Super soft in the mouth. Roasted pineapple, dribbly syrup, scratching on the pan. Yeah. Sweet white fish. That's a good call. I like that. Sweet white fish. I'm getting a little bit of... You know what? It doesn't take a lot of imagination to actually get some John Dory on that.
John Dory. Or John West.
No, I rejected this. Sorry, it had to be said. Come on, you set me up. That was.
I know. I had to.
You led with the chin there, pal. Come on.
Too good. So yeah, that one was.
Sorry, I've just seen James Caden's other. He said he died a little inside when I saw your Koki post AT.
Yep. Andrew Durbidge, master troll at action. And Paul says 53 is like crack to me or KFC on a Friday night.
Hey, it is a Friday night, actually.
It's time for KFC in 53.
Hey, you're at Shirt Bar right now. You've got Bell's Chicken just around the corner from you.
Yeah, down the road. Yeah, Bell's. Don't say Bell's. It's that is literally my kryptonite. That's just so good, so good.
Yes.
Bell's. No, I mean everyone likes a bit of fried chicken, but I think they do it very well.
They do it very well.
Good menu at Shirt Bar now as well. Different menu recently, and good bunch of good stuff going on the menu here with whiskeys as well.
Do you know what, Matt? I reckon this would be an amazing whiskey to have with chocolate. I think if we were pairing up and doing another whiskey and chocolate night, I would want to have a bottle of this to pair with, because I think it would go so well with chocolate in all its forms, whether you did it as a white, as a milk, as a dark chocolate, whether you did it as a like a fondant type, or in the style that we had with our whiskey and chocolate night about 4 or 5 months ago. It would just be a winner, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yep. And we do have one coming up later this year, which is exciting. We can, I guess, now's as good a time as ever to announce that we have got another whiskey and chocolate virtual coming up in September, I believe. So, yeah, keep your eyes peeled for that one.
Is that with our same colleague as last time?
Yeah, with Krisner, and his BASIK pairings, which were to many members some of the most incredible flavor pairings they'd ever had, which was an awesome night.
Oh, it was an unbelievable kaleidoscope of flavors on the mouth.
So we'll be working with Krisner on a special pairing there later on in the year. But yeah, that's exciting. And of course, July. I mean, I feel like we're in June already because it's this month been going. Festival month is sort of like boom. But yeah, July is of course Champs month for us, but has sold out. I'm sorry to say, for those who are thinking about coming to Champs, it has sold out. So keep an eye peeled in case we have any waitlist building. But in the meantime, it has sold out. Post-tasting munchies. Yes, I know that one well, Paul. Good old post-tasting munchies.
Matt, just an observation on my part. Did you find with this particular dram that it ran out very quickly? I certainly did. I'm going back for seconds.
I still have a bit in my glass. Hold on.
Now that one, I think that's a criticism of this dram for me. It ran out very quickly.
I've got a leaky glass.
Beautiful drop. Now, for those watching either right now or later down the track, some of these we've got our obviously festival tastings coming up. One in Sydney next week and Melbourne, both on the Friday. I'm hosting the Sydney event. Matt will, but all sold out. Matt will be hosting the Melbourne event. We'll be featuring the festival whiskies at both events. We're trying to do a live stream cross. We'll try and set up some tech for that so our Sydney members can talk to our Melbourne members, and Matt and I can have some banter across state lines, which will be good as well. So really looking forward to that. I think it'll be fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. I concur, AD. It seems to lack legs. My glass emptied rapidly.
Darren, you and I need to have a dram together, mate. I suspect you and I will have a very fun night together one night.
Darren, if you find yourself in Sydney, let us know, of course, always.
Please do, absolutely.
You did say you were coming to Sydney soon, so let us know. And big hole in the top of the glass says, Matt. Yeah, that's where you drink it from, Matt. That's how you enjoy it. I've added a little bit of water, but again, I don't know. Maybe it's just with maybe it's just where both of our palates are tonight. I don't think it needs it.
It's two things. First of all, it's the fifth whiskey in the lineup, so your palate's well and truly calibrated to cask strength. And secondly, it's the lowest ABV of the night at 57.7%. So, down at that level. But by the fifth dram, I've noticed this at tasting events I've hosted over the years. Very rare to see people reach for a drop of water by the fifth whiskey in the night.
Yeah, your palate's already starting to calibrate properly for cask strength.
Yeah.
Well, that's our 53,369. That's fish licorice. That's what? That's my pick. I'm going to agree with actually with what Martin says just here. All great, but that 53 won it for me. I'm going to go with 53, perhaps for me as my favorite, followed closely by 93 in my case. How about you, Andrew, tonight?
I think 93, followed by, I tell you what, for first cab off the rank, that 82 takes some beating.
Yeah, it's very good. Isn't it? It was fascinating how different that 82 was from the other 82 we started with. I know they're very different single casks, but they're 1 year apart, and you expect, I'll get some similarities there, but they were very different whiskeys straight away.
Well, welcome to the joys of the single barrel.
Exactly.
And I think something that's just caught my eye, and maybe I'm a bit slow on the uptake here, but I've just seen how fish licorice was spelt, the spelling of licorice in our turn. Well done, guys. Very, very nice use of lettering there. LIQUOR.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
There's licorice. Well done.
We had something like that recently. We had another name like that recently that was had that kind of name going on in it.
See, these are the things that upset my spell checker on Word when I'm doing the proofreading for Outturn every month. It's causes grief.
And so when you add it to your dictionary on Word, then that word's now forever wrong, always.
Oh, but my dictionary on Word actually has a Scottish accent these days. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it can pick apart the tasting notes very easily.
I'm really enjoying this. There's a couple of members just putting in their preferences or their rankings of how they've rated the drams tonight. I assume they're going first, second, third, fourth, fifth. But 53 has come in first place with at least 3 of the contributions tonight. It's a mixed bag there, but yeah, look, obviously everyone's finding some great drams along the way.
Comment from Aaron, who says 10 and 93 are hard to separate here, closely followed by 63. Big shout out to our YouTube audience. I know there's people watching on YouTube right now, so always any comments always throw up on the screen here as well. So please, we'd love to hear what you've been enjoying of the night. And of course, if you're not already in our Facebook group, I know most of you are, but if you're not, join the Facebook group. If you don't like using Facebook, you can always just keep us on YouTube, but join in the community on YouTube on our Facebook group, and you get to join in all the fun as well. And yeah, Paul, 53, 10, 82, 63, 93. Ooh, 93 last for you, Paul. Okay, very interesting, very interesting. It seems like, yeah, as Andrew said, the 53 seems to be like the pick of the bunch tonight, which is the only one that's still available. So if you've been on the fence about that 53, I'd jump online because that's not going to hang around. I mean, it's a festival 53, and we're really excited that we're able to offer that up for our May outturn, for our festivals outturn this month.
Sensational.
All right.
Well done, sir. I thought we'd struggle. This is the first virtual we've done where Matt and I have been in different venues with 2 different parties. You've heard all the noise from Shirt Bar. It's very quiet over here at the Grey Blinds Emporium. Not much action going around. In fact, I think most of them have left for the night. I'm here by myself in the corner.
The team is still going hard, though. They always go hard.
No, they left early, actually. They started on bourbon and the night wrapped up very quickly. So I'm here by myself. In fact, there's a sign. And AD, please turn off the lights. Okay, that's me done.
Last one out. Please turn out the lights. Exactly.
Yeah. No, this has been fun, mate. I look forward to next month when we get to sit together shoulder by shoulder again. But it's been fun. Wonderful to go through the Society's festival bottlings. What a shame that the festivals couldn't go ahead this year because of the COVID, but I think it's great that we're able to do them here in Australia. As I say, in Sydney and Melbourne next Friday, we'll have some wonderful events. We have some amazing stuff coming in through the country right now. If I can just put my Cellar Masters hat on for a moment, we have some incredible stuff on the water. We have some incredible stuff that's been bottled in the last 3-4 weeks and will be on the water shortly coming to our shores. Some distilleries we've not seen for a while, some incredible casks on the way, some SCS, the single cask spirits on the way as well. Amazing stuff in the pipeline. So, folks, if you thought 2021 was already off to a flying start, there's some amazing stuff coming down the pipeline for us.
It's an exciting year ahead, absolutely. And we're only in May.
That's right, exactly.
In May. James says, thank you very much for tasting, both of you, and thank you for the tasting pack, Matt. You're welcome, James. You're always welcome. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in and being part of tonight's tasting. It's been a blast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Much obliged. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time. Cheers, folks.
Cheers, Matt. Bye for now.